Okay, Pat, can you hear us? Okay,
We'll call the workshop of the planning board order. Business for discussion, continue our review of the solar farm ordinance, solar farm array, whatever we're titling this at this point, I'm not entirely sure. At the last meeting, when we scheduled this workshop, asked Tammy to get together some information for us. One was no particular order. One was whether or not we could have an overall limitation on the number of solar farms. And then there was quite a bit of discussion regarding the information that's in front of us with the, what we call the megawatt limitation in the certain area where we are. So before we get maybe into the substantive line by line type of approach, what we hear from Tammy, because I think what we'll probably hear is as we work our way through this information, that may help guide what we want to do here in the sense of, setback requirements or any other zoning requirements, depending on how this kind of works out. So, Tammy, can I have you kind of just go over this? I had a minute to read it before the workshop begins. I think I understand it, but, maybe I need to read things 2 or 3 or 4 times before I really understand. So can you kind of help us understand
certainly.
these documents in front of us?
I'd be happy to. And I have to read to my puppy dog 3 or 4 times before I understand it. So, she doesn't talk back yet. She'll just look at the progress. So, yes. So the first document I want to talk to you about is the Central Maine Power document. Those were the specific questions. This one.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Double-sided. The important questions around the back. And CFP was very nice in the way in which they answered the questions. And they do not provide much information for me, but it gives me an idea of where to go to get it. There is an application on question 3, the substation information. If you click there, the application to get the information is $300. How long is it going to stay current or accurate? I didn't put the 300 in to find out. So I then went back to a developer that I had worked very closely with and had worked very closely with in Berwick. So now you want this one. And this little diagram at the bottom is this nice big version, so it's easier to read. Okay? My eyes just weren't focusing on it being so small. So what we have been provided by New Hampshire Solar Garden is the information for the 3 common Berwicks. The reason he gave us the Berwicks is because we all share substations. So it wouldn't have been fair to just give the South Berwick information without knowing that now you've got 2 other towns playing into that substation. So how much room do we really have? This is where it gets a little confusing because CMP and the state of Maine are the ones that determine which plan gets priority over another. So South Berwick may not have another plan come in. And if it's a shared substation with North Berwick, North Berwick can put in the bigger substation, whichever uses up the most megawattage left in that substation. It's not split 3 ways, it's not split 2 ways, it's whoever gets their application and information into the state of Maine first.
Okay, so we just, I'm gonna kind of think back what I think I hear. So the Berwicks and what we're looking at here is a printout of the CMP substations that serve the Berwicks. So these are the substations that serve the Berwicks. Are there any substations and wells that serve any portion? So These are the only substations, so we don't have to worry about the wells and the Sanford.
No.
And then, so if these are the substations, and let's just take probably the one up the road. There's a substation. The substation has a capacity of 15 megawatts. And there are 12 megawatts already being used. That means that substation will handle 3 additional megawatts. So basically, if a project were to be put in, the developer will begin, from what I understand, somewhere at the state or CNP, to say, oh yeah, you're the first in. You're putting in for 5, but you can only have 3. So here's your 3. Have a nice day.
Correct.
What about an upgrade to the substation?
Good question, because Andrew got hit with that in Berwick. They were originally gonna put in a 5 megawatt. He downgraded it, it's less than 2 now. Yeah. So that's how much he had to downgrade it, because when he got the invoice from CMP to upgrade the substation, it was $6.5 million. So it's not falling on the CMP individuals, it's falling on the developer.
Lower safety.
And it's, and if you folks were to put residential solar panels on your homes, if you needed to upgrade your transformer sitting potentially at the end of your driveway, that's on you, not CMP.
Even though it helps them and then they have time to people to use it because they're infrastructure like you pay for.
But this is a way to also justify, and New Hampshire Solar Garden is a pretty big company. They've been in this business for well over 10 years.
Can I ask you, this is a list of the substations. Do we actually, when it says total size, that's the current load it's carrying, not their capacity. Right? We don't know their actual, is there any information where we count the capacity that they can carry? So we have an idea?
Yep, on this one, broken down by town.
Oh, okay. Good, Tammy. Love that. Okay.
Well, Andrew knows if he doesn't answer my question, he'll get another one. So,
Okay, so so
And it's divided by town.
So I asked you to kind of stop your presentation so that I can better understand something. So when we go back to you, keep going through this information. Oh, unless you have a question.
Talking megawatt, we're just talking about solar. Not on the substation ability to develop, drive, or.
no, the substations, and
That's-
according to this email, it tells you right in it.
Yeah.
In Southern Maine, most substations do not carry 20 megawatts of power. They're lucky if they get. So based on this breakdown, and you'll see where North Berwick has 11.95 megawatts across Bassett and Pratt Mooney substations. So you take a look at South Berwick, 16 megawatts across both. Bassett, again, it came up, and South Berwick substation. And then you go to Berwick, and it's at Berwick and Bassett, so Bassett hits all 3 towns. Bassett substation.
But also, so it sounds like, except for one thing, they're almost all capacity. So there isn't going to be any other solar projects really. All
Exactly.
this work and really in the end.
Well, that's why I keep bringing up the $1 million that the developer. In all honesty, I don't know what their net income is per year. And they don't have to release that to us. That's not part of the public knowledge. You know, it's like, oh, what did you make last year? You know, we don't usually release your income.
So I believe we should share it.
So when you look at it, Andrew wrote a nice statement at the very end of that email. If Berwick had a substation with 0 megawatts on the line, and Mike suggests an ordinance. But based on the minimal space available, I would not suggest an ordinance because it's a lot of work, for something that will likely not be used, assuming only one more project. would fit. And that's assuming, because you never know how big an array they want to put in the next one. And that would have been my advice to South Berwick if I had that opportunity to share the stats.
So where does the MBD application fit in? That factored into this, that was at five, and
It's-
then,
I believe it has to be, because when they
Yeah.
apply to us and they get the approval that their application is complete, let's do a sidewalk and a public hearing, that application is up.
yeah, I'd like if we could maybe follow up on that, because I'm not so sure I got that from when they came in asking for that extension. Because they had preferenced some type of,
They downgraded.
they downgraded 5 to 2, and there was some other
Correct.
issue, there was some other underlying issue that they were working their way.
I believe it was supply chain.
Okay.
And then also they got their decommissioning information in. So this
Can I ask-
was,
can I ask one question?
Yep.
Is the substation that the solar farm assigned to have to do with, like geographic proximity? Like if it's NBD, are they gonna tie to the closest substation, I assume, right?
that part I don't know, that's a CMP application that I was lucky.
So I guess the question is maybe,
Right, because we can add a Bassett, we can add up how much is at each substation its capacity. And as they say, at 3 megawatts, before that South Berwick substation is full, right? So do we know that NBE is going to that substation or a different one? What do they have? That's, yeah,
That's,
that's what I.
yeah.
does that really matter which substation they go into?
Well-
Because
Well, I
If we know
just,
they're full, we know that, right, that they can never go in this part, like, so if there's a substation here, here, and here, right? And you're putting a solar farm here, we have to tie to that one.
you,
And if that one's full, but this one's not, then that's it, there's no project. So I guess it sort of matters, because otherwise why bother to something?
so if I say North Berwick has 11.95 megawatts of capacity, that would be solution. Because the issue is the capacity.
now see,
I don't want to focus just on South Berwick because the regional substations, they have a capacity for, or, you know, because when you get to the other end of South Berwick, where you, North Berwick, it may be very feasible to tap into one of these other substations, which I don't really know where they are. You know, that's.
Isn't that what we heard, is that they're shared already between North Berwick and South Berwick, that subdivision provided both?
and you can see under the North Berwick section, typically a substation can support up to 10 to 20 megawatts each, depending on that size. That information is only available via a pre-application that costs $300. It takes about 3 weeks for CMP to return.
Give you free information.
And that pre-application could put them in line for CMP approval. To know that, okay, the pre-application's been submitted. And if you look at on the from CMP, there's a document. I went to look at it, and it is so far above me with electrical knowledge and things happening that I said, I'll see if they want me to print it up to see if they want to read it.
So,
This is all what the state has to go to allow CMP.
so what I'm trying to figure out is how, where,
Chapter 324.
no, North Berwick, Pratt has 3 megawatts.
Okay, so Bassett has 15.95.
So north, so South Berwick is served by,
That's it in Southborough.
so when there's 6 Bassett substations.
When it says Bassett, that's a sub, there's only one Bassett substation.
That's just where it's assigned.
I see what you're saying.
I think, well, maybe the one. Some are, so batteries at all 5 megawatt. And
I did ask him that question, and that was one of those.
size fits. There's a second one at 4 megawatts, so that's 9 already in itself. Two more, so 5
Right there. That's the right. That's the right. No, I mean, the actual substation itself is only at 7. So Bassett has 15.95, it might be, still have capacity for a 5 megawatt project, max out.
Did you want to look down to Bassett? Yes.
I added up the substation listed and the amount, the total size assigned to it. I don't really care who uses it, I don't care. But here's the substation, and here's the total size of megawatts in use. So for Bassett, it's 4.95, right? And then the next one is, there's nothing, and then nothing.
Like your math for Bassett.
4, 5, and 2, so 15.95. And Pratt Whitney was 7.0, so capacity there. Berwick was 8.76, and Silvo was 7.0. So that means, you know, there's capacity in the substation.
Right, quick. So to that point though, where did this person get the information that there's over 3 megawatts left? That's the,
Well, for me, that's what's weird.
That's
Is it
right.
which station?
there's only, and then in the South Berwick, there's 5
Yeah,
megawatts
Pratt
left.
has 3 megawatts left, so the Pratt substation can only take on 3 megawatts.
But here Pratt Whitney only has 5.0 and then 2.0. That's it, the rest is blank. So it's,
Right.
so that's 7.0.
Right, so 3 left, and they get a 10 megawatt substation.
But is there some flex, is it between 10 and 20? Is it that it's 10?
He said, most of them, most of them are 10.
Most of the 10, I got you, okay, sorry.
Is there, sorry, is there someone else in tonight?
Yeah, it's probably the people for the 7 o'clock part. Because in South Berwick, that's 60 megawatts across that. South Berwick.
That's what's larger than almost 5.
You want if you want to.
But-
Yeah, that's right, I've got 5.
That's what they do.
And Pratt has 3 megawatts left, base of being so small. So right, so capacity is 10, the capacity is 20. Berwick, some Berwick are also 10. Then South Berwick has the capacity, the South Berwick substation, not the town, has 3 more left. Berwick has 2, really, 2.5 left, right? And Pratt Whitney has 3 left. Sure. Okay, got it.
What does it mean there's only 5 megawatts left on Bassett between the two?
Because both South Berwick and Berwick can use the Pratt Whitney substation. And that substation has already used up 15.95, so that's about 4 megawatts left. from counts needed to allow their county to comply.
And I seriously believe the pre-application is what triggers who's gonna get ahead of somebody else.
So,
You
so
better do that first.
we can, so, okay. So how does that then translate to the next step in our ordinance? So if we were to think about what minimal capacity exists at this point, right? For this. We are always operating at, truck. This is what's left. That's an interesting documentation. How do we ride with that? So maybe they have something that we don't. So let's assume, for purposes of discussion, NBD is going to go through, right? One being built here already. So again, that means maybe a possibility.
Yeah.
That one is fine.
What's that?
You said the one that you built, like.
I think the judge wrote this.
Yeah.
That's not.
So that's already included in this, right? The NBD is probably already included, so the maybe only one. So
What are these ones? What are the four solar funds? What?
Or there's three listed.
Yeah, we don't have that information for you.
But these are his projects, right, solar gardens?
These are
No.
some that, CMP.
Right, when he did his, he does his applications,
this is
This is-
CMP brings out to say, here are all the solar applications that we're dealing with
So,
in your area.
so that's CMP received applications that we have received, is that possible? They go to.
we,
Right, we approved Judge Road.
So-
And he did.
Okay, but
Well, it's interesting because they don't have any addresses associated with them.
yeah,
So it's hard to know what's,
but this is
Yeah.
showing the capacity for current solar projects. So South Berwick, there's your two, there's your NBD house, right? And then the other South Berwick at the bottom, there's your 5 megawatts.
But then there's a 4.5 versus that. Maybe it's just unholy because we're in the way.
Those could be from another town.
No, but it's South Road, it's the town, not where the substation is, it's the town feeding into that substation, the four South Road projects. We only have two of those.
or they did the pre-application so they could get in line.
Yes. Very well, look at it.
Right.
But I think the point that you're making, Rick, is what makes me mad.
Oh,
Well, is that they're pretty much reaching capacity and and of course, things could change. Somebody could decide, CMP could decide, or the state could decide that we're good. So now they have this 2030 mandate to get 80% to renewable energy. Who knows what that will be? So, let's see. But in the meantime,
Which means we pay for it.
in the meantime, I gotta pay for that, but other stuff.
So now that we understand maybe that the capacity is somewhat limited, but it appears that there might be some more pre-applications here perhaps. We don't. Because we don't have any from NIDA. But it would appear based on this, there are two additional companies that get to hear from. Perhaps.
And then there's still some capacity. So we could actually have 3 projects coming in.
So,
So that's significant. That's not a small thing. There's a lot of fire projects.
so I guess from a practical perspective, how do we look at that from an ordinance perspective? Just to get the conversation about, I look at these again as a big commercial measure. Again, it's that important point we were discussing. Where do we put them? Go back and look at some of the other stuff going on too. And maybe I didn't see it in maybe I'm wrong or something. But one of the big issues was the setback issue. When we met with the town council, we didn't like the setback issue. It was the bonding issue, the definitions in table A, and setback. Those are the four issues that they determined that they didn't really. But when we heard back from the attorney, the definition was really largely settled by the attorney, because he said, hey, here you go. And the bonding issue was largely settled, because he said, hey, here you go. So that really left then the location and the setback, the setback issue. So recognizing that these are really big, intensive projects, you know, one of the things that, you know, may or may not have come up in the past has been, again, as we talk about where they are, you know, how much impact do we want to put on the road system here in South Berkeley? When people look at these other projects, it's not just going in and they're done. It's, and it is a, well, old replacements, you got the heavy equipment going up and down the road. And these are pretty intense projects to put in large solar, at least the ones that I see when I go up and down.
I just say, let's put them in I one, just put them in I one and call it a day. That's, and or conditional use permit, I'm okay with that, I'd like conditional use to be perfect.
If you wanted to put it into I2, if you go to, on the ordinance, page 1 of 11, at the very bottom, I had recommended the 50-foot
Yeah.
buffer with undisturbed vegetation. And if you go to page 2 in the blue, there's a way in which to screen the fencing, metal fencing, so you don't see it
Yeah.
in a residential area. Those could be incorporated into the R2 area.
So I'm okay with putting, channeling it out to the island.
I want that to be.
The work and concern that I have, with the I2, and I'd be more concerned about the screening from that perspective, is the I2 has a lot of residents on the outskirts.
Right, not a lot, but it does have some pockets, and we could say that you have to have a bigger buffer where you're up against residential.
Yeah. I'd also like to contemplate, depending on where we resolve this, and I will not, so for purposes of this, it goes in the I1, I2, right? So I don't know.
It's not up to us to
Yes.
determine.
You know, it could be that we're thinking of a place where they can't possibly find
Yeah,
it.
we will. So the other thing though too is looking at what roads do we want them to damage, right? If they're gonna be coming into town. Don't they have? Don't they have?
236 is an out
Well,
road, so it's gonna be.
some of them has to be on the state name.
Mistaken.
It could be a frontage of a state name. And I
Well,
think-
and that's, I want to, and I think protecting with a little cluster.
But you could say, you know, we'll do 236 and 4.
Folks, gonna stop talking,
But remember
please,
the,
thank you.
that was the basic.
Right, and, yeah,
7 o'clock.
everything else is.
Can I give a second? So I can go along with the setbacks, and if we put these into I1, I2, I think that for purposes of our next go around. Good?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Oh, you can't make any decisions.
Yeah, no, but I think you have,
I just think for I2, also there's huge enough, there's wetlands, right? I mean, under both, and also, you know, our shoreline. Wetland.
Yep, and they have to go through the state of Maine to get all those permits.
Well, and also, I hate to say it, but I'd like to be, we're like to be more restricted than state or federal law.
Yes.
I'd like to,
Right.
actually, I really am tired of, when we get to have tier 3 and 10% of this, and it just wrecks everything.
so I think from what I'm hearing collectively is, well, we're not taking action, I get it. I think if we were to take this ordinance and see the next rendition on table A, I1, I2, I think we would be I'm speaking, I'm not going to speak for everybody else, so go ahead, speak. But I would be open to that on the outline of table A, and reducing the setbacks. The industrial.
There's the quarter along 236, basically.
Down by the high school, and right.
And then Route 4.
Or last, yeah, for that,
Yes,
that's the I1.
that's fine.
That's the I1.
The other side is.
And it's got like, we're hearing a lot about the acres that's available. What is it?
And I have to say also, if you, when you read a line underneath CMP's transmission corridor there, but you're probably good. So I don't know how that.
Could become a maintenance issue.
Well,
because that goes
The
away.
solar, your solar arrays not glare
Right.
because of FAA rulings,
Right.
so they are all not glare.
Oh, so they're both.
They are built specifically for FAA use.
Yeah, the anti, remember that whole conversation, the anti-reflective stuff? Yeah.
You can pull this out.
Yeah,
and
no, I
fix
will,
it.
I will.
You know, I just want to say, I read an article recently too, that was, I don't remember what it was. About the problem of end use and how it costs $30 to $40 to recycle one of these and
Yeah,
get $2 to
it's a lot.
$3 worth of material out of it. And so they're going to landfills or they're just being left. I really have a great fear that in 20 or 25 years, they're gonna suck us dry.
You don't,
And
and
then-
condition that they cannot be disposed of inside for
Yeah,
litter.
well,
They have to have a, well, Mass
They have
has a
to-
recycling facility down. where they
so
take
why don't
it.
we, is there any further questions for him? Rather than the editorial comments and all that. So,
When you guys
I
have
think-
more time, I'd be happy to share with you the 3 most common complaints that we get in the
Yes.
code office
Yeah.
about solar.
Let's hear it.
Want to hear it?
Yeah.
Number 1 is screening, because they're taller than the 6-foot screen. Okay, that's the number 1. Number 2 is the dirt from it. So there's this is really silly, but you can put in your ordinance about this like grass mix, and this grass mix does not need to be cut. We should have done it on more solar farms here in Berwick. One of the companies just happened to do it. We get 0 complaints about that. And
When it's
really-
cut or not cut.
you don't have to cut this special grass. One of our solar farms has it in Berwick. We get no complaints on that solar farm. But though, when they cut that grass, all the dust and the dirt and everything, we get a lot of complaints about people having to power wash their homes. Or often. Yep, and then the third one is road construction, tearing up the road. And if they catch fire, what happens, you know? So,
They get fired?
yes, you let them burn. They burn very hot and fast.
Okay.
so, that's interesting.
Wow.
So maybe at our next meeting, we can see that big version, we can put it in back to addressing. I'm still not being 50-foot setback, and I know the council said no to.
Well, 100
100 seems reasonable, given the fact that.
Be a little more.
Well, But once again, is the point that you want the setback because it gives you screening, because there's no vegetation there, what difference does it make?
Well,
Setback is.
I think let's,
And you
let's
expect
explore that.
if you build it and, you know, plant arborvitae around it, you build this funny square, you could, but that could be.
There's treatment in whether or not you have to treat the. It's already developed in the pasture, that's one thing, but if it's forest native, then another, that might be where you're setback.
So maybe we can ask Danny, we can come up with a couple different variants. So again, let's look at the ordinance, pretty good. Let's say I1, I2. And give us a couple different renditions of what the setback might be or screening might be in the or open pasture. Unless the board any screening it, that was the variance as opposed to. So that.
And hey, Tammy, I made some comments, I'm just gonna send you my markup, which really is just completely frivolous. Like seriously, what happens if they do it? Do they have to do a study around temperature increase if the study shows something? Or we can't do it? We don't really address that. We just- There are a lot of things we ask for, but we don't know what the consequences are. You know, if it's gonna kill every plant within a 2-mile radius, we should just say, yeah. we should do that. I don't know how you can study that. You know what I mean?
All right.
Yeah, just, go ahead.
I'll send it to you.
Everybody, any last minute questions before we close out the start of the workshop?
I'm so say Tammy is awesome. Thank you so much for preparing all this great stuff for us. I read every bit of it.
All right.
We're all worth it.
So with that, we're going to move to the regular meeting, and that being said, I'll ask people to rise. Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have time meeting open, please?
Got, so the workshop closed at 7:08 and the meeting opened at 7:08. And so that being said, we all really know each other here, so we can probably eliminate the future agendas and introduction of the board members. The first item on the agenda is going to be public comment. Is there any public here? We'll start in the room, comment on any items that the planning board needs to be aware of. And moving on to Zoom, is there anybody on Zoom that has a comment?
Hi, this is Joe Daltor. I have a comment. I don't know if you can get microphones onto the tables, but the sound quality is really bad for those of us who are trying to follow along on Zoom. I realize you can't do it tonight. I realize maybe you can't do it tonight, but in general,
Yeah, I noticed that, Joe, watching the town council meeting, I couldn't really hear anything. So is that any better in any way, shape or form?
it's a little bit better, but maybe there's some enhancement to the system where they can put microphones on the tables, something like that, which would be a big improvement.
Yeah, okay, we'll bring that to, run that by Tim.
Yeah.
The audio quality in the stream.
Seen worse than we're all.
Yeah, you can't really hear much of it. I am speaking as loud as I can, Joe. Any other
I
comments?
appreciate that. It's also like very echoey and stuff like that. So I think it has more to do with the placement of the microphones. But I think there might be an enhancement they could fix it.
Yeah, so we'll bring that up to change. Thanks, Joe. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, why don't we move on? Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the June 15th? I see no issues.
I move we accept the minutes from June 15th, 2022.
A second. Okay. Is everybody here? Okay, so we'll call the vote on that. See here, approving the minutes at 6:15. Bill? Yes. Greg is yes. Hershey?
Yes.
And Zach, and one abstention. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move right into new business. We did have a chance to review application MSP 22006. The individuals are here tonight. This is Easy Street Properties proposing a 5-lot subdivision on Great Hill Road. That being said, I'll hand it over to you folks to give us the rundown. What they're looking for tonight, I believe, is the sketch plan review and ultimate approval of the sketch plan.
To determine whether or not preliminary will be conventional and or custom.
So. What's that? Well, so, well, I asked Tammy to help us better understand. We got, I'm not gonna say hung up on the other pending subdivisions, Sandville Estate over up in Middle Pond. There was some question about, how it works in terms of a traditional versus, or a conventional versus a cluster subdivision. And I went back and did take a look at the ordinance, and there may be some, I'm not going to call interpretation, that did seem pretty clear.
You have to,
I
I
didn't-
understand you have to meet a traditional,
Yes,
right,
so-
plan, and that determines the number of lots that are allowed, and then you can ask for a cluster. And our discussion is-
Well,
Okay.
in your ordinance, 140-47. If you go to B1B, the number of units per lots in the cluster subdivision, whether proposed as a single family or multi-family development, shall in no case exceed the number of units or lots that could realistically be created in the standard subdivision.
So my read is, we don't have to say,
They can have less if they want.
Right.
Cluster.
You can't have that.
right, but remember, there was some question about, well, why are we asking to, on one hand, you said, here's traditional, then here's cluster, what are you asking?
Well,
And then we said, you gotta do the traditional first.
that does, in fact, tell you the maximum number you're allowed.
Right,
So, and then, but we still have discretion around clustering as far as.
Right, but I think the question of whether or not we have to approve a traditional first is not necessarily the case.
Well, it does have to meet the requirements of the code. I mean, whether we approve it or not, that.
Right, right, saying we didn't have to go through the approval process. and then
Oh, I see what you're
now
saying.
we
Right,
approve this.
right, I think you're right
Yeah,
about that.
so that was, no,
We do have to scrutinize it though,
Right.
as if it were before us, and ensure that it meets the requirement before we can then say, yes, you can approve for this number or not. So,
yeah,
yeah,
I just
You're
wanted
right,
to
you're right.
make sure that we're all on the same page with it. So, gentlemen, why don't take, we just need to get ourselves clear.
Sure. I'm used to standing up at the
Yeah.
podium, but I'm kind of like this.
Just speak up for the people that are listening. That's all I would ask.
Joe, can you hear me? I don't know if you just unmute or-
No, you're good. Just keep talking.
Yes, much better.
Okay, great. My voice carries, so. My name's Eric Salish. I'm with Northern Survey, Dover, New Hampshire. Here with me tonight is Jeff Lee, property owner, and Rob Rosen, engineer with Waterstone Engineering. I do have a handout for you guys. I printed out a million copies by accident.
Don't come on, they can get me.
I'm licensed- I'm licensed in Maine.
I'm just kidding.
You do not have this. Don't believe it, but it's in the all this is here is an existing conditions plan. It strips out the proposed lots. Really, it's to simplify things as I start introducing the project. It'll be a little easier to navigate the plans that way. Hopefully you guys can follow along. So I'd like to start by walking the board through the site as it exists today. The subject parcel is located on Great Hill Road at the intersection of the Great Works River. It's also known as tax map 13, lot 53B. The parcel is currently 21 acres in size, plus or minus, since it's a waterfront property. And it is in the process of conveying 1.6 acres to an abutter at map 13, lot 53A by a Seth Gagner. That sale has yet to go through, but we do indicate the area on the plan and show areas and distances around that little strip there. So that brings the subject parcel to approximately 19.5 acres. The parcels has 671 feet of frontage along Great Hill Road. Alongside ample frontage on the road, the parcel has over 900 feet of waterfront frontage along the Great Works River. The parcel is zoned R4. It is within 2 overlay districts, the Resource Protection District for the river and freshwater, minor freshwater wetlands. The 250-foot resource protection buffer is located right here. You can see there's a leader to it right around this spot. It's this dark dashed line that arcs up and follows the course of the river. Parcel has a series of independent wetland areas which were delineated by FB Environmental. You can see note 14 on the plan for more information on that. Read note 14 if the board wishes me to. I'll keep going. Northern Survey met with Joe Russell late last year to discuss the wetland areas and to verify that the appropriate wetland setbacks were shown on the plan. There was some confusion on my part within the zoning ordinance of what would be required on these wetland areas. So I had a very detailed discussion with Joe to come up with 25-foot wetland setbacks that are shown here and determine which wetlands were below an acre in size and which ones were not. Because my concern at that time is they're all wetlands are contiguous with each other. So how do you identify if something's greater than an acre maximum setbacks? And he broke it down and simplified it for me and said, no, this one will be this, we'll do 25, 25. So that's the basis of the history behind the wetland setbacks that we show. I know there's a new board here and Kenny's new, so I just wanted to kind of walk you guys through that, make sure we're all on the same page. The parcel is subject to 2 intermittent streams. You can see one here coming through the center of the parcel. And then there's one back here along the southeastern boundary furthest away from the road. One of these streams we are proposing to cross, which is where Rob comes into play with the engineering and the permitting. We'll touch back on that in a little bit. The parcel is located in a flood zone. The majority of the flood zone area is within the 250-foot resource protection district. The developable area of the lot is not within the flood zone. Note 5 talks about the flood lines shown. It's interesting because South Berwick is part of, there's two FEMA maps out right now. There's the effective FEMA map, which is dated 1985, and then there's the preliminary FEMA map, which is dated 2018. As far as I know, the preliminary map has not been put into effect, which is why we show both lines. They're awfully tough to distinguish between, but you can find these leaders. One that says AE preliminary, and then there's one that says Zone A effective. We'll identify it as dashed lines, and the majority of these flood zone areas is within that 250-foot resource protection district, not upwards inside the developable area of the law. Test pits were conducted by Mark Hampton Associates. This was in February of this year, and the report dated the same day that confirms the parcel has suitable soils for a septic system for each lot. I have a copy of that report with me. I believe the test pit information was included in the application, so you guys should have copies of the test pit logs. Anybody wants to see a copy of the written report, you can pass that around. So I'll send that.
Yeah, can you send that over, Eric, so we have it for the record?
Yeah, absolutely. Right here, do that.
I'll let the board, and then, as long as you get us a copy, I can put it in the records.
Yeah, I'll make a note. Do that. Yeah, it was probably included with the test pit information. I don't know why I would have withheld that. Yeah. So to wrap up our tour of the existing conditions, I'll touch base on the soils on the lot. You can take a note, look at note 15, which says soil information shown here on is for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Blah, 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 published in 2003. A site-specific soil survey was not conducted as part of the survey. We imported these soil lines for GIS, but you will know if you check out the soil legend with the type of soils, they are fairly consistent with the test pit logs. So I noticed no one's asleep, so I must be doing something okay. And I'll move on towards the proposal. Our submittal contains two plans, one conventional 5-lot subdivision and one cluster 5-lot subdivision. In the essence of time and ensuring that the board does not fall asleep, I'm not going to review the conventional subdivision. We've reviewed both of these proposals with Joe during our preliminary meeting. One of the reasons this site is perfect for a cluster subdivision is because of this area right here, which is right out by the bridge.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the set plans I have, I don't think you have the traditional one.
You received that first. That was the first one you received on this application. It was handed out about a month ago.
Yeah, so I'm just going to be presenting on the traditional
Okay, yeah.
survey.
There should be, I believe, copies of the conventional ballot.
You want a copy of that?
The 11 by 17.
Thank you.
All I know is I've seen both of them, and I've been.
But this will be the plan that I'll be speaking to
Yep.
mostly. We do have a conventional subdivision plan that is, well, this is the convention. That's the convention. Where's the cluster?
This is here. Oh, this is the cluster.
Yep.
You.
Do we have? Some plans of this?
That's what I'm looking
This is
for.
the one that, tonight's.
So, yeah.
cluster,
Yeah.
So C1, you want to
So what
put
is it?
C1 is clustered here. And then this is the conventional. I don't know who had it, who brought their original packet, you would have.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be talking on this one most of the time.
On the cluster.
On the cluster. I'll give some reasoning behind that as well. So,
So it's all here. Um, No, on the conventional subdivision, they have gone over and above board with the size of the lots.
But I'm saying, just as a new review,
Yes.
I sat down with Joe Russell, reviewed it, and I sat down with Tammy as well.
that's what I wanted to, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
looked
And
at-
it meets,
And he has numerous changes.
and it meets the requirements for, okay, all right, I'm happy, go on.
Sorry.
No, not at all,
So,
sorry.
well, what was gonna be a quick meeting ended up being what, about 2 hours?
Yeah, I was in Tammy's office for quite a while last week, so we're acquainted. But I can spend some time with you too, Christian, that's not a problem. So I'm gonna jump back in here. I will touch base back. I'll keep referring back to the cluster and the subdivision, and the cluster and the conventional. There's similarities throughout the presentation, but just for time, so that I'm not here speaking for 3 hours, I'll keep it to a mere 2.5. That's good. 10 or so years ago, the bridge for Great Hill Road was replaced over the Great Works River. And during that replacement, they cut in this big area. It looked small on the plan because the plan scale is so large for 20 acres. And I actually had a picture of this laydown area on my desk. I don't know if anyone's driven that road or is familiar with the area. But there's a big grass area that I was convinced for the longest time that the town was mowing. It turns out that there's a butter close by that has been mowing and maintaining it. And there's almost a gravel parking area there. We used it when we surveyed the site. Fishermen would pull in, go down to the water or do whatever, fishermen do, or basically using this parking lot that is on private property. So that's kind of an important caveat as we start discussing this project and the proposal that's coming in before you, is
So you're
that,
operating easement, is that what you're telling me?
no. But it gets better. So I kind of went off my track here. Let me pull this back together. And Jeff, as being the landowner, has never had an issue with the public kind of using this space. And now that we're talking about subdividing the lot, Jeff wants to take this opportunity to actually conserve this space and to keep it for the community and for public use. The conventional subdivision plan would be deeding this out. There would be a lot that comes all the way down that strip of land and abutting the water, which would basically put the kibosh if the new owner of that lot decided to stop public parking there. They would have the right to do so. So in talking with Joe and now Tammy and us as well, we feel that moving towards a cluster subdivision is the best use of not only the developable land on the lot, but it also kind of creates this 5 3/4 acre lot that follows this resource protection district line and follows the 900 feet of frontage along the river. Speaking on the cluster subdivision plan, the proposal meets the requirements identified for the R4 zoning, which is 30,000 minimum square feet of lot size, with 4 of the 5 lots over 100,000 square feet, which almost meets the conventional subdivision lot size as it is, as the conventional subdivision requires 120. And then the 5th lot almost doubles that 30K minimum, and I believe it's 53,500. So these are oversized cluster lots, right out the gate. The proposed lots have ample frontage along a private road that comes down through here. By clustering the development, we're able to dedicate this 5 3/4 acres, just under 6 acres along the Great Works River to be kept in conservation. This is speaking back, kind of looping because I was jumping ahead of my spiel, but we have an existing parking lot area as well as the start of a trail network that the public has just, we show a trail right here coming in, and it kind of goes down along the water already. This can be expanded on once it's in conservation. The cluster subdivision has the proposed lot lines adjacent to the resource protection district, which further protects the resource because there'll be no private ownership within 250 feet of the water. Conversations have already started with the Great Works Land Trust. Pat Robinson from the trust is on the Zoom call. I do know he has a commitment. He told me he's signing off early, but I do see that he's still present. She, sorry. My apologies for that. Yeah, it's spoken on the phone. It's been through emails. Both proposals include construction of a private road. This private road is 600 feet long and meets the town's requirements for such. It does cross the centrally located intermittent stream here. The crossing will require a main DES permit by rule, as well as an Army Corps of Engineers permit, both of which are prepared and ready to be filed as a condition of approval. If there are any questions regarding the road design or the stormwater management plan, we're obviously here to address those, and I figured now would be a good time to open that up.
I don't have very many questions on that. It's a private road. You're not asking the town to take it over, so other than making sure that you do the appropriate permits to crossing, because it's private. Do whatever you want on a private road.
So that's a state DES question. As long as we meet those boxes, we're going to get. And we're
Right,
well
we
under
don't have any private road requirements for them.
No,
maximum 600 feet.
Well, what I mean,
that's the part,
as
yeah.
far as construction standards go, it's,
So even with a private road, they are encouraged quite diligently and follow up with the Department of Public Works to ensure that they do build them, should something happen, to town standards. And in talking with, as this goes along further, when I discuss any part of this with the developers, I always encourage them to keep all the records on any of the inspections that they have done, should they ultimately decide to come back to the town to have it adopted, even though they are not proposing this. They would have the records right then and there in front of them, and they would have to have all the surveying and further testing done, and those core tests can be something else to try and get done.
gonna pay, but they're
So it's something that we work with the developer on.
Aside from that, I'll just introduce myself real briefly. Robert Lezine from Waterside Engineering. Aside from the paved aspect of it, the road standards are all designed to be your minor local standards. So road width, materials depth, road shoulders, everything, drainage, all that.
again, so the record aspect, you ever envision, I mean, you never say down the road, right? You ever envision it becoming down the road? No, probably not.
Can I ask on the cluster plan, let's see one. It shows a W with a circle around it, and I have no legend, tell me what that is, and then a 100-foot circle around that. What is that?
That's a proposed well.
That's for the wells.
That's a proposed well. Yeah, and actually to touch base on that in my thorough review of Tammy, you will notice that the well on lot 4 is positioned in front of the house, kind of near where the private road has a hammerhead, pretty close to where the driveway would be for the house. Tammy had some concerns with the location on this well, as it is kind of pinched between two 4K areas, although we do have that 100 feet of, space that's required. This well may be getting shifted to the rear portion of the house. And I got confirmation from Tammy today that a well is not considered a structure. So we would be proposing to place that within the 100-foot wetland setback. This would create some distance from the private road and, some of the leaching beds on the neighboring lots. It is within the wetland setback back there, but if you're drawing water, you might as well be closer to the water. So that's the thought process behind that minor change to the plan that you may see. But, for tonight's purposes, this plan proves that, we can fit a well and a leach bed on each lot. The lots are oversized, they have ample frontage.
Are you gonna be looking for any waivers or anything?
So I had some questions early on with the town of South Berwick subdivision application. I had a really hard time figuring out what the town required from us. Joe told me after I met with him to just fill out the site plan application and send it in. So on the site plan application, which is probably the application you're looking at right now, there are a lot of things on there that I didn't bring forward. You'll either see they were left blank or I put not applicable. Now, in my experience, a subdivision application may have some of those things, but it will definitely not have all of those things. So I guess I will refer that to you guys to let us know that if there's something that we're missing in part of our submittal, then we can file waivers and or cross that bridge when we get there.
Usually the sidewalks.
So
That here.
No,
we don't have any other questions. I'll keep talking.
Yeah, keep going. If you have more, yeah.
Okay, I'm almost done. I'm
Go for it.
gonna wrap it up. Ramp it out. So in conclusion,
Make it big.
this is like my big night, right? I got nothing else going on. In conclusion, this property has been in the Lee family for over 100 years. Jeff and Jess acquired it about 2 years ago from Jeff's father. As Jess is Jeff's wife, just to be fair, what I speak. As Jess's mother ages, their hope is to construct a home on one of these lots for her to move into and have her close as time goes on. With Jeff working in the community, many locals have shown interest in these lots. This is a subdivision with the community in mind, with the sailing of putting this strip in conservation. Its approval would provide Jeff and Jess the opportunity to bring Jess's mom closer to home, and provide the community of South Berwick with recreational space to walk dogs, fish, and hike. As a surveyor, it's been a great project to be a part of. We ask for your approval.
For the cluster, right?
On the cluster subdivision.
Okay. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I provided you with some information. 3 pages worth of regarding the subdivision.
Yeah.
And in looking at it, I did the same thing. I took it apart again. And you will notice that I put the land use ordinances in there for you to take a reference. And the fact that the comp plan is also being reworked, and you are going to have to look at a low impact design and a soil erosion control design coming up within the next 2 years. This is going to play already into that, both model ordinances that are coming forward for the towns because of our stormwater environmental score permits. The way in which he's designed it really will assist the comprehensive plan in keeping this open space. Even though it is 250 feet wide and it is a wetland, there are still numerous things that area can be used for with this process. The only thing that I have asked them they can do is for the homeowners association, they need to have no cut signs put on the back pieces along that 250 foot line. This ensures that whoever might purchase it and say, oh, it's just grass, I'll just mow it down. Or that little tree, it's just a little weed. Can't happen. If it's on the deed and on the plan and in the homeowners association, there are 3 times that that potential purchaser will see that. Hence, it will save your 250 foot buffer. Better. So there are a couple of questions that discussion items. But before you get to the discussion items, you might want to discuss whether or not you would like to go forward, how you would like to go forward. If you wish to use the conventional subdivision, you're gonna lose all of that open space. It's gone. It belongs to the people now, and the homeowners association, along with the MS4 permit, because this will have to be monitored by them. There's a potential that they would be more likely to take that into that buffer. So, and with them already having gone through Great Works, you'll see in the proposal of the original paperwork that they were gonna offer it to the town. And in talking with Tim, when I met with Eric, Tim would like to offer it to Great Works first because of the liability behind it for the town. So it's something that, I mean, I've never been out to that part of the river, so if there's any deep sloping in there, that could be a hazard for them, or for adults, if that happens. You know, you get your old folks that want to go out and go fishing. That type of information would be.
You know, the definition.
Yes.
What is it?
147, 140-47. That's where I read the and the suggested discussion items, Eric has already said that they've got most of those already, like the paper covenants.
So it's really not that, it's really not that far off.
No, I've got the comparisons right here. on the top of the
Yeah.
page. So it took me long to figure out how I was going to get it make sense of it.
Oh, Tammy, on your comments, we do have, and we've already submitted the letter for Fish and Wildlife Services regarding the species.
How far out was that?
I honestly, I did not read through it, Rob, maybe I'll be able to tell you a little bit more in depth. I just received it, filed it, checked the box, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'll add it to the documentation.
And I'll make sure you get a digital copy of that as well.
Yep.
It's the usual with the northern long-eared bat.
Well,
Yeah, you said the bat.
South Berwick also has the ribbon snake. There's a cottontail. I gotta figure out what color cottontail is.
Okay.
Also endangered in here.
Right.
Easter.
I don't believe there's any of those.
That's the one. And you can't forget about the begonia, which is one of the plants
Okay.
that will need to be. So you may have to follow up with, fisheries, so you can mark it on your survey. So that.
Oh, yes, only it was. Yeah, so it's the northern long-eared bat, monarch butterfly, and.
Now, yeah, but if you read below that, it says critical habitat, so that's good.
That is very good on that one.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Right.
Yeah, so
But because these guys are, hey, no critical habitats.
Everything's great.
But I was there was one of of the biggest reasons I'm going with the cluster on this one is because of the size of the lots that they developed before the cluster.
We've got the cluster.
No, I had the, I just wanted to see this one here.
And if
You're
you-
really shrinking the lots a little bit.
Right, and if you, on the conventional one, if you look at the placement of the houses, a couple of the houses are in wetlands. I have a wet basement and I'm not in the wetland. So,
I know. What are you gonna hear back from, I'm sorry, you're just talking about this, from Inland Commission?
So we did, we have the letter here, there's no critical habitats.
no critical habitat, but there were species found on the property. But as long as they're not critical, they don't have to, like, for the long-eared bat, they would have to not do construction around that critical habitat.
So only July, August for the bat.
Correct. So they couldn't build the best part of the summer, which to do their construction. So the bats are notorious for disrupting the building process.
Okay, were there other things besides the bats?
Hold on, we have a flower,
Butterfly.
on our.
On our butterfly.
Yeah, the long-eared bat is there.
Don't worry, I released 400 of them. So
Yep, monarch butterfly, the
Thank
whole world, begonia, but there are no critical habitats.
you say crit- that's a destination.
Correct.
Critical habitat.
Yeah,
As
it's
opposed to a not so
critical.
critical habitat. Okay.
Right, if
Gotcha.
it's critical, it has to go on their survey, and nobody can build anywhere
Gotcha.
near it around it.
It does say in the report that the bat and the pavilion are threatened. So, and that the monarch's just a candidate, so.
So you're gonna keep an eye on the construction part of this, so we don't disturb the bats.
I mean, I'll take and send this out to you on Tuesday,
Maybe
put on that.
It is neat, isn't it?
Not working Monday.
I'm in Berwick on Monday.
No landings, no racers, no.
Nothing.
No,
Andy, did you get this?
yep, I gave you one of those.
Yeah, we just received this.
Yes.
Another one?
I can say this.
I just print, so I did write it down. We do have it.
Yeah, so, Jeff, are you proposing any like covenants, because that's gonna have to be recorded, you're gonna do like, you must have a 2-story, 2,000 square foot, or what, are you thinking anything like that?
Not really, honestly, we haven't really gotten that far yet.
Yeah, before they can do their covenants, because of the size of the property and possible water area. When it comes in with the preliminary, we'll need time to get it to the attorney before you can hear them at the public. Hearing. With the covenants and a safety deed.
Sure, I motion that we accept the cluster as presented. Are we approving this as, we already approved this?
No, this is just sketch. You need, before you get to preliminary, you have to determine which one they're gonna come to you with. Not preliminary.
I propose we accept the cluster.
Yeah, it's been moved, is there a second? Any further discussion?
They have the option to chime in when you said any further discussion. And they'll have more time.
Well,
to
let me
get
just be
to-
clear, is there any member of the public that has any comments on this proposed subdivision before we make a motion to approve? Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. I'm just curious, and I don't in any way mean to make this a problem, but there are some other properties recently developed on Great Works Hill that required public water because of some groundwater problems. And I haven't seen the map very well. So is this far enough away that that wouldn't be a potential problem that you might want to consider in your provisional decisions?
Well, it's kind of on the opposite side of the street, more or less. I'm
Is it?
not really-
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with, I know what you're talking about, Joe, but I'm not really sure. Either I wasn't on the board, it got approved or whatever, I don't know, but there is another roadway or lots going in. I don't really know what that is actually. Does anybody here?
to cross the street.
Yeah, it's across the street there from where you're from, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just didn't want it to come up later on as a surprise. If it's not a problem, that's great. I just didn't know, I hadn't heard it mentioned at all, so. But I-
But this was gonna be by, private well, is what I'm understanding too. So,
Right,
There is a water quality issue out there, you know that, right? Like water testing?
We have been, I think there was, I was trying, I don't have it with me, but there is a line somewhere, or I've seen a picture somewhere that shows like which properties were affected. for that.
Okay, I would recommend, I'm fine moving forward with the cluster, but you may want to look at that because the town received a notice about a year ago. Was doing something regarding that contaminated spread out there. Yeah, that really is right in that area, go on it. You may want to just look at that, because that may be a drilling prohibition.
Right.
Out in that area. So you're gonna want to probably take a look at that.
Okay.
And there is a letter that the town received, in fact, maybe it'll go on somewhere on the website. And it may even be in the code office, but I remember the town got, I got a letter too.
So consultants, I said,
Yeah,
they were all.
yeah, but that may be something just dependent on.
Which was the company?
So consultants, right, town, here's all.
Yeah, but the DEP released a letter about a year ago on the status of this and about the prohibition. Because some people moved in and they wanted to do a well and lo and behold, it came up with all sorts of heavy contaminants.
Well, the house that abuts this piece halfway down Great Hill on my side is a well. So
Yeah, okay, well, maybe that
it's
answers
on the
that
same
question.
side of the road.
Yeah, it's just kind of, just have a look at that.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah. So it's been moved and seconded. Joe has already asked his question. Is any further discussion from the board members? All in favor? Bill? Yes. Greg? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You're good to go with the cluster subdivision. We'll see you at the preliminary plan stage. And feel free in between to work with Tammy and code, work our way through this. Perfect.
Mr. Chair,
Tammy,
just so that the applicants and the board know, it is up to the developer before they can get the CO on any building to make sure that the water was potable.
Yep.
So last minute, when they do that water test, they may have to put a filtration system in.
yeah, and that's why I brought, just be aware of that and look at that well prohibition thing. There was something that was a big thing.
So what is this, what is the next step here in town? In the very planned stage.
You're moving towards the preliminary plan stage. right?
There's
As a
a
cluster.
preliminary plan application for the cluster subdivision. That's what you need to do and provide to us. Actually, me, it's time to be able to review it more than just trying to get through it in 30-second frame. So,
Incorporate anything Tammy's told you, anything we discussed.
Yeah, there's a list of
Make
things here.
some changes.
Right.
Resubmit.
That's the next
There's a
step.
couple things here you may want to consider. okay?
That's fine. Wording copy.
Okay. So you're good, you're gonna work and move forward with the preliminary plan for the cluster.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, that was
Thank you.
very good.
Tammy, I'm impressed. First time out of the gate in this town, and look at that. Wow.
I just gotta remember what kind of permit you're gonna-
no, they'll actually be providing you with a plan.
Yeah, I know, I just. I got
Keep
one
it
back.
from
Back to the agenda item. Under discussion, the planning board did receive a request for a zoning change for what about 324 Main Street, but again, we're not talking about any type of spot zoning. the request is to actually change the portion of B2. There's all of the B2. Folks, thank you, take care. So,
I'd like to hear, can we ask?
so, thank you.
Can you lay out the differences between B1 and B2, like in a nutshell? For the impact it would have if you change something? Thanks. Where now? Oh, look at that, another handout. Oh my
So what
God.
I did is I took our table,
Okay.
right, I had a question, so we called me. And this is what we decided to do. Okay. I believe there are just two differences between B1 and B2. And also table B. I think the first one is on the second page.
The caregiver retail stores is one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one overlay. That's totally different.
Wait, where's the only? Oh, there we go. Function or banquet halls, like the first one? That's different?
Yep.
What we use? Okay.
Yeah, so the B1, look at number 8,
Working with it.
is not allowed because within all districts, this use for the function hall will only be allowed on properties that A, have frontage on 236 south of the junction with Route 4, and B, the public or PUC regulated water and public sewer. So that's kind of the main point, there really is no difference, but you can't do it in that zone.
Gotcha, okay. And just let me try. Okay, and the next one is. Eight, great. I don't see
I
any.
think it's gonna be the,
Is there another one too? I only found one at table A.
And then I believe it's table B that might have. Yeah,
well, to build.
commercial minimum lot size and square footage.
Okay.
So I want to just answer Bill's question because he did point out a very good retail store.
That's
Yes,
it.
those are in B1, so that is the difference between B1 and B2, but there's also probably a star somewhere here that actually is limited to the B1. overlay district. Okay. So it has its own little special spot. Okay.
So, why is it NA and B1?
So one of the things I think we need to talk about is the B1, in my view, is really geared towards basically business development. There's no setback requirements. Really no minimum type of not lot size. There's no lot size. Right?
Right.
And it's really the B2, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but what's the difference? Because they're right across the street from each other. The B2 has a lot more residential aspects to it. And so I think that's part of the difference as to why those many years ago, those lot sizes were thin.
Right. Can I also ask, in this particular section of B2, it's not the one to this side, but the, where
The one in question.
one in question where the property is, how many of those properties are not clients have been grandfathered in?
That I can't tell you. Because when the plan came in, my first question was to Joe. Because he was planning and the chef man was already talking to Joe about this. So he put in the mother-in-law's apartment, which was fine until his family started growing. He really likes the house. Ultimately, he said, "I can see myself moving back to my children." He doesn't have the room now for the children to grow. Does not matter. It does not matter. you feel for the individual, and that's wonderful. But I have to be told when it comes to do with zoning, and also, anybody that comes in, I have to follow the ordinances. So when I talked to Joe, he said technically, every single person across the street from the B1 zone could be changed to B1 in the B2 zone. So I sat down with my little crayons and started, oh, took up almost the entire B2 law.
Because they were compliant.
No, because what I did, in talking with Joe, if you look at where his lot is, because his lot is facing the road, where it's B1 across the road from him, he technically could be in B1.
Well, sure,
So-
we change zone district.
But he's not.
No, he's in B2,
Right.
but the road is leaving the deeds. And this is B1 here, all of these lots right here can become B1 because they're opposite. This is B1, so this one. The only ones that don't come fall under it are the ones right here. B1 is over here.
So, for example, could I say would it make sense then to say that we would change this piece perhaps?
Yeah, this is the first time you're looking at this. So if Shane already knows that he's gonna have to go back and talk to the board in person about it. Because I wanna make sure that what I'm reporting to you is accurately. So while you have this, and you can look at it and contemplate it and see what other avenues might potentially be available. Because otherwise, you're gonna be here for already probably with those lots that are coming in. 2003 coming up.
Two things I want to kind of explore more. Rather than B1, B2, should we be looking at the BR? I don't know. Well, are we, you know, when someone comes in and asks for zoning change, right? One person is kind of, you know,
And here's what I have to say about that. I like Tammy, I feel for the guy, but I think we make zoning changes because it's in the best interest of the town and the public, and not because one person wants it. So, and you know, whether it's because they're going to make money or they need their disabled daughter to move in with them, I hate to say it, I don't care.
Right,
It's
you
not
have
our
to
job.
follow what's in the ordinance.
Right, and so I think though it's fair, because he makes a good argument to look at, you know, maybe we should change it, and we want more density. And LD 2003 is coming down the line, and we're gonna have to deal with that, and in which case we might have to do this anyway. And, you know, sometimes things get changed or are random, and they don't make sense now, and they made sense a long time ago, that is the differences between B1 and B2. And to me, the differences are, you're right, it's slightly more residential as you get out of town, but so is all of this right here, right? And, you know, what is B1 and what is B2, and I don't really know why. So in that sense, you know, we want to make it more commercial, less commercial, denser. I think giving people the opportunity to put more housing is better for the town than the area where it should be dense.
sure, so I have just a couple. I'm not gonna harp on the comp plan. Being looked at, but what does the comp plan say? Remember, what does B1 mean? What is B2? I'd be interested in these. That will probably get you more historical perspective because it's rather old. What, when the town put this into effect, what did they think B1? Like we saw something, you know, the R4 is meant to conserve open space. You know, what do they think the B1 should do? What do they think the B2 should
Yeah.
do?
Let me see if I can find
Yeah,
that for you.
But yeah, and I think, you know, I'd like just to see that, but also the bigger question is, rather than looking at this one single issue, and maybe we'll get to it, Tammy, when we get to the other handout type of item, but that LD 2003, what does that have effect on us? And what is it that we may sit here and say, oh, we don't like that, but 2003 is, well, you gotta do that. You know what I mean? So
That's where the
what-
legislature is right now.
Yeah, so how much of our time are we gonna waste on this? You know, we're gonna give it to the legislature, so that means we're not gonna find out anything until this time next year.
But I know they are already working on it. So, and
I would say in response that, I suspect the comp plan is gonna say smart growth, which is more density, you know, places where people can walk, you know.
But
Okay, so
let
it's
me get-
several names, so.
Yeah.
Right, but, you know.
that was on my to-do list and I ran out of hours and the day.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I'll get a copy of that, and as soon as I can get the information, I'll take it and scan it and send it out to you guys, so you can compare the two. Like I said, the applicant already knows he's gonna have to do more than this.
I hate to say it, I don't think the applicant has anything he's gonna say to me that is
No.
gonna be compelling that, you know, I mean, unless he's a planner.
No, and he's not, and seeing what he wanted to do, when I talked to Joe, I kind of went out the window, because what Joe said was making more sense to me because of the intention and what was meant to be in that zone, and how those roads going all the way around that B2 zone are virtually bordered by B1.
Was he on top of where water?
Yes.
Are you sure? Because it doesn't say so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure they're-
probably 99%.
Because that matters. Yeah.
You know, I just looking at it, I think it's clear that, you know, B2 is just meant to be slightly more mixed use, right? Than B1. B1 is commercial. B2 is, there already is some, but they also said you can develop some commercial if you want, because, you know,
So
it's downtown, and that's where we expand to, so. But, you know, the question is, does it make sense anymore? And we have houses there, and some of them can turn into.
Well, you gotta be careful that, you know, that. You want to be careful of that, you know, find into a place you think it's a particular zone, you like to live in the downtown, yes, it's for this. But if someone sells next to you, change them now with. Those restrictions, those protections go away. so
But
now
B2
they're-
does allow commercial uses, it's mixed, right?
Yeah, but
So
it's
you
the
already,
density issue.
you already have that.
It's the lot size, so you could have more go in. I just would want to be sensitive to that, you know. that-
No, I understand, you don't, you don't want to put like a, like,
That's fine.
No. If, and you also have to remember that if the B1, not everybody has to take and put apartments into their house. They can leave it just the way it is. There's nothing that says they have to take and build out to be into their property.
Yeah, but it's, you know, again, taking more of a pragmatic view, I get it, you know. But all it takes is one person to say, oh, now look what I can do.
Yeah, and you know it's gonna
And
happen.
you know it's gonna happen, so.
so we want, I think we want that. to happen. From my point of view, is we need more housing. Want it
It
to
just
happen.
depends on.
Downtown is where it should happen.
Housing versus some commercial. Housing, I'm okay, I'm generally okay with, but if it's like, if we're gonna be reducing, eliminating. Stuff, you know, we're gonna be opening up for. You know. That's, you know, this house we just put up. Saying it's kind
Yeah, no.
of, you know,
But it already can, I mean, it already is in a zone. that is-
with some restrictions. That's, you know. One of them.
I,
You don't
I,
want to consider, obviously.
I'd be curious of what's, I don't want to answer your workload, but what's in compliance and what isn't. If it's that everything in B2 is grandfathered in, it doesn't meet any of the zoning to begin with, then, you know, I mean, you know, we're, no harm, no foul. There's not that many lots for this.
So to move this along, the board members want to see anything in particular. I know you're gonna look at.
And if I can have assessing full report for the compliance piece, of those lots that are both lots and structures, you can work it in. Here can correct quite a few, but I'm not sure how to.
If I can change one thing about the way people write things and the way the planning board talks about the word grandfather, if we could take it off the table altogether because it's not a legit term anymore. If we could actually go legal non-conforming. So
I'm sorry.
I will work with you guys on that,
Is
and I
this
will
a
work with
sexism
him.
thing or a technical thing?
It's technical.
Okay.
Yep. So instead of saying something's grandfathered in, it's legal non-conforming, that's like the
Gotcha.
actual term now,
I do want to-
and it makes more sense.
Yes.
So that when people call up and they say, I'm grandfathered in, no, you have a legal non-conforming lot.
Right, that has it. I got it too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I know it's petty, but.
No, it's.
Yeah,
Well, the state of Maine doesn't recognize grandfathers.
that's correct.
So, yeah,
They just call it legal
That's
non-conforming.
legal non-conforming.
They just call it.
Anybody have any other questions that they would request? Information that they would like to see? So how does that then fit in to the next agenda item, really, which is to talk about that SDGC and the overview of 2003?
Well, it's only a
It's only-
handout.
Yeah, I get it.
And the reason it's only a handout was because I was hoping to get Paul Schumacher, the director of S&P,
This year.
just about sometimes. But even if he's able to Zoom from, he's got a conflict for the first meeting. And he said he may have to attend another conference for the second meeting, but I'm hoping he might be able to Zoom with us to be able to go over this. So what I was hoping you folks would do is take the nice colorful. This is,
PowerPoint presentation.
yeah, this is what SMPDC and Paul Schumacher went over with the town council. Last meeting. or the meeting before. So I am asking that you take and look through it. LD 2003, and the key components to it, the affordable housing requirements, the increased density requirements, and the accessory dwelling unit. And that part Jim can help with immensely, because those are listed in the ordinance, which is what we have to call. There are scenarios in there as to how you can do some of the things, some of the items that they're recommending. The only discrepancy that Paul had with what was going on is the legislature was not providing guidance how to get to this. And that's something the legislature does when they provide a new law that all municipalities ultimately have to commit to compliance.
So is it a legislative issue or is it a rule making issue?
Probably a rulemaking issue. They kept calling it the legislature, which makes the rules.
We ask questions now or we gonna wait?
Don't wait until you have a
Okay.
chance to take a look at it. And then, you know, on each page, write your questions down, because as Paul goes through it, they were asking questions so that when you got to the end, you didn't forget what your question was. I do that. That's why I write it on page.
All right. Do that.
So this is accepted, you would be able to solidify.
So we don't have any old business. Does anybody have any old business?
So that's something that's board, I think, needs to kind of be.
Yeah. The only one item under old business is, well, it's not on here, it's not a big deal. All those projects that have come in, we had that. That's all. Kind of trailing doc, all the items that, you know, we're working on. Right. Okay, we used to have it here for 23
Like
reasons.
Oh, like whether or not you received information. on it?
Yeah, I personally, I'd like to know that it's helpful for me, because I look at this, and I go, okay, and I say to myself, well, where was that project? Or what was that? And from a public perspective, knowing that there are some other developments out there that may be larger, you know, I think perhaps one of the prior things, it listed everything, but it clearly said,
No.
no new
Right.
business.
Yeah, that's-
Even if that's at the bottom, just, so that would be helpful just for that, just, you know. Other old business that, is there any other old business that you're aware of?
I actually have one question. So I think Amy said that NBD had been approved with conditions and met conditions, which we never saw them. And can I get a copy of the DEP report? we got consent from here, consent from Amy. And the, it was say industrial road, actually, Inland Fish and Wildlife report that they were supposed to meet. Can I get a copy of that?
This is also for NBD.
This was NBD. I didn't want to approve it. We approved it with these conditions, and then they now say those conditions were met, but we never got to review them.
So, you know what may be helpful, just to kind of, maybe just kind of an update, because I wasn't here with the NBD. And I think NBD, we figure out. Pulling back from memory, we said something.
We approved the conditions, and the conditions were they had to meet the requirements of DEP and provide it to us. And Inland Fish and Wildlife.
Right, but then they came and reduced it down to.
Right, and but in the meantime, they were about to, their extension was, they were about to expire after the year.
Right,
And they wanted an extension, and they also changed hands.
and they reduced the size.
And they
so-
reduced the size from 5 to 2 megawatts.
And see, if I would have been here doing that, we would come back to the site.
That's, yeah.
Site plan,
Something-
site plan review, an amended site plan should have been provided to know the new layout for one
Yeah.
of the solar array. Whatever. The construction extension is what they wanted, that was the first piece, because
So can we get a stat, can we kind of get like a little written stat on that and then have a conversation?
Yeah, I
Maybe we
mean,
need to pull that back.
I mean, right, I hate to say it, let's go back and say, just, I'm so sorry, but we gave you an extension, but we also, if they dramatically change something that was approved, they need to come back in. Right.
and all they need to do is provide you with an updated
Right.
site plan.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, Mr. Chair, what I think we're hearing you say, and Timmy and I just did this in another town, we just created like a spreadsheet type of document, and it has first application approved, if it's complete, where they're at, there's a section.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be best for like your.
Just something,
so it's-
I'm happy you get anything you give us that tells us where they are. Yeah. and
Okay, yeah,
It just tells us where they are in the process.
Yes.
That's perfect,
But
yeah.
someplace that the public can get it, because it's also important, I'm gonna just highlight the same things. That's gonna be a tough one.
Well, there's
And
no
then it comes
reason,
back up.
yeah, there's no reason why that can't be updated, it just posted right to the planning board
Fine,
on the
as long as
website.
it's there, you know.
I swear I saw this, you said, where the status of it, where the
Perfect.
application process.
Yeah, it's not very great to build it's there.
She also has it on her blackboard now. As soon as I saw that, I said, because now I know what's coming in, I know how long it's been. So if they're not, if somebody gets like these ones, they got approved tonight to do the
They
cluster.
have a certain time frame.
Exactly. So
And all
and
this
it's,
stuff
and
dragging
it's
on forever.
not up to us to reach out to them and say, oh, did you decide not to do it now?
Yeah, so I want to know when it gets passed.
Yeah, we approved, but we like the application process.
And then the other one too, Amy's Lane, remember that one? That was a whole big sidewalk, a big thing. And then it's, like, what's up with that? I mean,
There's that
I guess
Pleasant Street one too, right?
maybe that's the one
That
that,
one right over here by the cow pasture, kind of like the bridge.
Yeah, yes, that,
There's that one, and then there's that other, the cluster,
over by the,
more,
over by the river.
ice ponds.
Meadow Pond, that's the Sandville Estates.
Yeah.
They wanted this, they wanted that.
They're
asking for a
working on
way.
it. They're not, they're not gonna like,
Right, but
It's supposed to
but I think we're learning here with this, you know, this board actually requested a meeting for some, and obviously there's a natural connection now with making sure Berwick understood, because whenever we do with Sandville and Franklin Blackboard Road, because there's also stuff pending on Blackboard Road, those two roads dump out right into Berwick, and Berwick needs to be aware of that.
Yep.
And I think we want to kind of hear from
Well, Berwick wasn't aware, and they actually need to file for a building permit in Berwick for their fencing that's on the Berwick property.
what fence.
It's the fencing to, screen the apartments from the butters.
On Blackbird Road.
So,
That one, I mean, obviously, I honestly don't know where they are.
I thought Yeah, I can see the.
But that was a while.
Yeah,
So
when
we need
there's a
to,
bunch of stuff like that.
maybe we can take 10 minutes at the next meeting, right? Just a general discussion where these projects are. One for all, on the same page, you brought it up. You know?
I think it makes sense, and it makes sense for the public to see it too. So it's a good point.
Well, I remember that one specifically because we got a lot of emails following that one about how we can prove that we had to consider the conventional.
Yeah, that was,
There was a lot, we got a lot of.
that was the sand.
Little bad.
Now, there's something that you need to remember. Not discuss a project without the applicant.
I don't think we're talking about, I think we're talking about just a general update.
Process.
Of the work, process.
Yep.
Yeah, I get that, I get that.
Okay. Well, that's one of the questions that people can.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, so.
Yeah. So we said very clearly and then you was.
Yeah.
There's traffic issues. People.
We're very good.
Yeah, well, you're gonna be great to cut through. Before you go down. Usually your way out to District Drive. to go out. Probably a lot of people.
Yeah, that will need approval from the planning board to be able to do that.
They did do it.
This has come up at another site.
All right. Any member, so at the next agenda, maybe we can just kind of.
Yep.
What did we talk about? Any member comments?
Nothing.
No, okay.
Yep.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion made, sure.
And move, second, all in favor, raise your hand. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Well done.
Okay. Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Oh, yeah.